It's always a delight to have you join us on the program Politics Today on independent television and radio with yours sincerely, Sonny Duke Okosun. Of course, today is not an exception. Well, we've got a whole lot to talk about, as much as time will permit us to. But today, our starting point will be a revisit of the PMB's Independence Anniversary speech. 3 key areas were focused on in that speech. We'll be analyzing that on the program. And then on World Teachers' Day, teachers in Edo State under the umbrella of the Nigerian Union of Teachers came together to endorse Governor Godwin Obaseki. Of course, that has also attracted some reactions. I'd like to thank very especially our panelists here in the studio. Christopher Ogiekere is a program officer with Foundation for Good Governance and Social Change, a public affairs commentator, civil rights activist. Chris, many thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much. Good morning, viewers.
We also want to thank very especially the Executive Director of Canvassers for Democracy and Rule of Law, Pastor Olu Martins. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's always a privilege. Good morning, listeners and viewers.
Okay, let me start with Chris. I believe either you listened to Mr. President's Independence Day broadcast or you probably read the full text online. What were those things in the speech that perhaps brought some butterflies into your stomach, that captured the very essence of the state of affairs as far as the country is concerned right now under his leadership?
Thank you so much. My observation, first of all, of the speech is that I thought, and that's a personal opinion, I thought that certain vital elements and ingredients were missing. And this is what I mean. Considering the kind of situation Nigeria is in today, we're in a dire straits, politically, economically, socially, and existentially. People's expectation from their leaders, especially the president, have reached feverish levels. Because, as the president himself said in 1983, Nigerians believe that this is the only country we have no other country to go to, and so our hopes reside here. So Nigerians expect that Nigeria will work for them. But Nigerians have felt highly alienated from governance and the activities of government. And of recent, such alienation has heightened in polarization between the North and South, in ethnic divisiveness across the country, in religious polarization between Christianity and other religions, especially the Islamic religion, and so many security challenges of existential threat nature, and so many other things. So that what I was expecting to see in a speech was a speech that conjures up the metaphor that would show empathy, relating the text and content of the speech with these expectations and aspirations of Nigeria, so that the president would have had that opportunity to connect in a very intimate way, in fellow feelings, and in a human way with the Nigerian public. Now, having so done, he will be able to galvanize and mobilize and motivate them towards what he calls the next level. But what I saw there was the usual norm of the structural arrangement of a speech that dealt with the 3 planks of the president's objective, namely security issues, issues of corruption, and then issues of the economy.
Okay.
And all that was written, as far as I'm concerned, being a humanist, did not connect with my emotions. It did not connect. I felt no empathy. What I just saw was banal, indifferent text. There were so many commitments I expected to see, which I'm going to, talk about in the course of the program. So I didn't see that connection there in the speech. Now, as to what I did see, I saw that the president had tried in his way to give himself certain pass marks in these 3 areas. But his evidence, as he portrayed in the speech, does not necessarily agree with the evidence of people's expectation. What Nigerians, the elements Nigerians want to see in terms of the action plans the president has, in terms of examples of deliverables that he has done, in terms of evidence of performances, infrastructure, and all the actions he has put in place. I'll give you an example. When he was in the UN General Council, now he was asked a particular question that relates to the fact that Nigeria has a very youthful population, and then what was the promise of the resilience of the Nigerian economy to accommodate this youth in the near future. The implication of that question is that if youths are not taken care of, they become, easy prey for all sorts of criminalities and illegality. So they wanted to know what the president has as a plan for the future of the youth. He didn't mention about youth here. And what he said about youth here was that, well, because we have a very youthful population that is vibrant, we'll continue to invest in education, we'll continue to invest in health, we'll continue to invest in water, we'll continue to invest in sanitation so that their basic needs will be met. Are you following? Yeah. Now, he still failed to use this opportunity to give us a Marshall Plan, to give us measurable structure of the plans he has for our youth for the future. We still don't have such measurable structure in place. That was the question, and the question is still left hanging. And so those are some of the lacunas I felt that I saw in this speech.
All right, yes. Martin, did you connect with Mr. President's speech on Independence Day, 59th Independence Day broadcast?
I've never connected with this president. I've never. Even if he tells me, even if I dash my feet against the story, he tells me the story, I'm not sure we connect. Maybe it's his nature. He just doesn't...
Or maybe it's also your nature.
Yeah, maybe it's also my nature. But I've had people connect with me, so I'm not sure it's my nature. But the point I'm trying to make is that one of the very vital ingredients of somebody who is the chief executive officer of an organization is the show of empathy. Like somebody said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So a country that is in disarray, like Nigeria currently is, and this is not to sound pessimistic, the indices of disarray dot in nooks and crannies of the state. I drove in through New Benin, coming from GRA, and one of the streets where people were coming from, I couldn't believe that that was actually in Nigeria. And that kind of scenario dots everywhere. Insecurity, every nook and corner. So you would have expected that the speech of a president, not just another day, but on Independence Day. Independence Day means that the labors of our heroes past, people who sacrificed for the independence of Nigeria, and people who continue to sacrifice, you will remember them and connect them with the promise of liberty. It's like what Martin Luther King said. Martin Luther King said when they struggled in the earlier days, the oppressors gave them a bit of promise that in the future they were going to receive certain largesses on that promise. But that when they went to the bank of the future, in the present day, the bank said there was an empty vault. And he says, I refuse to agree that there's an empty vault for tomorrow. So what a president does on a day like that where everybody is crying, the indications of, all the indications against Nigeria are in the negative. I was listening to a radio station when I was coming here, and they were talking, is it electricity? It's in the negative. Is it roads? It's in the negative. Is it education? It's in the negative. Is it water? It's in the negative. You know, and so on a day like that, where we're talking about the fact that the colonial masters, as it then was, had handed to us our right to preside over our own common patrimony. We're not in charge of our own resources. We'd expect that the president will agree, first of all, that we haven't delivered on certain areas. That will placate me, that this man understands how we feel. But it looks like it's a professional speech. Incidentally, I try to connect the speeches Nigeria president has made in recent times to Nigerians, and I can tell you that 22 items on the 57 items were almost verbatim. In other words, the president wasn't talking from his heart. There's a difference in talking from your heart and in talking from paper. The president was talking as a president to his people. He wasn't talking as a father to children. He wasn't talking about it as a leader to people who are following him. He was simply talking as a president to his people. He needed to read an Independence Day speech, and they handed him one. Perhaps he didn't peruse it. He just read them like that. Let's put it on record. You know, the very popular I Have a Dream speech, that I Have a Dream part of it was not part of the original speech. It was at some point in time, Martin Luther King, having read the speech, deviated and felt I needed to connect with, the people. And then he introduced that I Have a Dream part, of the speech. So I completely concur with Ojokere that there was no connectivity. And then the president is talking like somebody who is aspiring for office. He's not talking like somebody who has been in office for almost 5 years now. He's talking about things that will be done. We have certain statistics, and these are the things that would have been done. We'd expect that what we want to hear is the fact that now that we are presiding over our own common patrimony, these are the things that we have done, and this is how Nigerians, are benefiting, from it. If there was anything that connected, with me, because there are two things that connect with you. When you say butterflies in your stomach, when somebody is, is promising you something that is beautiful, there's butterfly in your stomach. But if somebody is also ready is preparing to break your heart, there can also be butterfly, in your stomach. Look at what it's about to say. Because part of what I read was that this president is determined to raise internally generated revenue, and the way he wants to do it is to come back to the people. He doesn't intend to do it by tightening, the noose of wastages in governance. He doesn't intend to take the generated revenue to them who are in government by reducing the benefits and the perks of office. He doesn't intend to do that. He intends, typically of Nigerian leader, to come back to Nigerians, to introduce toll gates, to shore up VAT from 5%, to 7%. So for me, it was typical. I wish I had a speech that will give me hope, something I can tell my son to say, what, I will have a president who feels what we feel. But in this particular case, it was just business as usual, no empathy, no connectivity. And I think that, like you said, the president missed another opportunity again to connect with the people of Nigeria. Especially for a president that doesn't talk very often. When you have the opportunity to talk, we expect that your speeches will be weighty and they will be full of promises and compassion.
Let me get Chris involved in here. Let's start off with the key 3 areas that the president focused his speech on. Insecurity, the economy, and of course the fight against corruption. Of course, it was on those planks that he came to power.
Yes.
But let's look at the fight against corruption and then installing good governance structure in the country.
Yes.
Would it be correct, or would anybody correct to say that the rot in the system is dwarfing some of the gains recorded in the fight against corruption?
Yes. The person will be correct to say that the rot in the system is dwarfing the fight against corruption. And that simply means that you don't have a proper strategy. That is why the systems are warning you when you should develop strategies that would diminish that system, that would expose that system as the system of corruption from which you are insulated and upon which you are now trying to act as a catalyst of change. Now, the only record of corrupt people that are now advertised in Nigeria are all connected to the president. So how will your strategy work when Maina, Rashid Maina, who was convicted, or well, not convicted, accused of embezzling 2 billion naira, what do you call them, pensioners' money, and had to run away from the country when the heat was too much on him, was smuggled back by the Minister for Justice and Attorney General of the Federation. He was not just smuggled back. We have it on good authority that he was helped the DSS chief there in Daura, who hid him in this country, and then with the collusion of Dambazu, who happens to be another close ally of the president, he was smuggled into the ministry as Assistant Director General of that ministry. How does that impact on your strategies and reputation of fighting corruption? How does it impact on your strategy and reputation of fighting corruption when the aide to the wife of the president was accused of such humongous corruption and we're not hearing anything about his trial till tomorrow? So the reason why the system and the rot is dwarfing it is because if that comes to equity, must come clean hands.
But this system was inherited.
The system was inherited.
Yes.
And he was elected to change the system. If you listen to the speech, he said, Nigerians have committed for the last 4 years to positive change. And that is his commitment. One of his cardinal planks. We are saying, why hasn't the president changed Nigeria in 3 years? Why hasn't he eradicated corruption completely from our system in 3 years? We are saying, how is he seen, perceived to be fighting corruption? What's the objective in his fight against corruption when it relates to close and personal aides of the president?
Does that mean those who are not close to Mr. President, who have been either prosecuted, they don't have their fingers in the murky water?
We are talking of
yes.
reputational morality here.
Okay.
The fight against corruption is being chairmaned, marshaled by a general. That general must seem to be above board. What happens with the others is immaterial to this point. What we are talking about is the ability to be able to have that influence to command the rest of us who are here to believe in what you are doing so that we can assist you in that fight. The whistleblower policy, for instance, by the time it came out, every Nigerian was willing to use that avenue. Now, it got to the point where somebody did last week. We've not had any whistle since that time. Something went on with the system. And that's the whistleblower policy seems to have terminated. It's still there in the laws. There is apathy. There is no motivation because every time you try to do that, you hit your head against a brick wall. And by the time you exit the brick wall, the person is one connected to the president. The president has not been able to exonerate or exculpate himself from the vice. He needs to do that to stand out before he can marshal honest-hearted, patriotic Nigeria. Who will? Now, corruption is not just embezzlement of public funds. Because every time he makes reference to corruption, he talks about attitude to public funds, he talks about attitude to public office and all of that. People don't understand that corruption is a holistic thing. It's also cultural. The fact is that for you to be able to fight corruption, you don't just mobilize resources. You also mobilize empathy. You also mobilize emotions. If people perceive the president to be sectional in his appointments, if they perceive the president to be protective of his ethnic group, how is he going to be able to motivate other ethnic groups to join him in the fight against corruption? Why is it an offense for an Edo man, for instance, in Kano to block anywhere on the streets of Kano? That is an offense, and Edo man will get lynched, and nothing will come out of it. But you find the wheelbarrow boys every day beating up our guests in the street. I'm talking of something I can provide you immediately. And when the boy was challenged in Ramat Picket, he walked across into the military barracks and came back militarily. But, well, in all fairness to the military man, he came with a sensible one who told him to go and pay for the treatment there. Why is it possible to do that here? Because those boys have been pressured that because Buhari is their own ethnic extraction, they are protected by the laws of the land.
That could also be an abuse on the part of those boys.
Yeah, well,
yes.
Well, the law is there to deal with. The Bible says the law was made for the lawless. The law is there to deal with the lawless. If they abuse, let the law deal with them. Okay. But I'm telling you, but he's working for and still pushing his way back. Okay. The law did nothing whatsoever to address it. Yeah. So the fight against corruption is not seen as the president's own sloganeering.
Okay.
Yes.
Reverend Olu Martins, a major talking point on the fight against corruption recently was the PMB'S $9.6 billion issue, which of course right now Nigeria is fighting to see how the forfeiture of some of our major assets globally is avoided. But we know the origin of that scam didn't start with this present administration. I don't know what your thoughts are from that perspective on the fight against corruption.
You know, my challenge is that when we say that it didn't start from me, it sounds like one of those songs that Shaggy sang. It wasn't me. Leadership must take responsibility. A former boss I worked on, a female, had 4 beautiful boys. And a man was interested in her.
You mean 4 beautiful girls?
4 beautiful boys.
Okay.
Because the boys were so good looking, they qualified to be beautiful.
Okay, I got it.
And the man wanted to marry her. And I said, no, you can't marry me. Because I have 4 with me. So they are with me. If you take me as your wife,
fine.
that's fine. You can. The man said, I can afford to take care of yourself and your children. They are not his children. But as soon as he married her, he married both her beauty and quote and unquote, and her children as well. He accepted the asset of a beautiful woman and the liability of 4 children. And I agree that it didn't start, but we elected you to nip certain things in the bud. I think one of the most guilty areas of this administration is the impression that it creates across board that there are 2 kinds of approaches to corruption. It's like what happened with what makes Alibaba and the 40 Thieves an interesting read is that the 40 thieves are thieves. Alibaba himself is a thief. The 40 thieves stole something and put it in a cave. And they have a way of opening it, open sesame. Alibaba hid somewhere and hid it and went in there and packed all he could. But for him to come out, he didn't remember the code, open sesame, until those guys came and saw Alibaba in the midst of their largesse. So how did you get in here and what were you doing here? That's what makes the story an interesting read. One of the things that this president has not been able to do in the fight against corruption, sir, is that he has not been able to show that there are 2 ways to fight corruption. There is punitive way to fight corruption, which is what he has mentioned in his fight against corruption. He talked about the EFCC, he talked about the ICPC and the Ministry of Justice and the security agents to administer punitive measures for those who have been found to embezzle or misappropriate public patrimony. However, sir, the other side of it is that has he been able to make it impossible for people to access public funds? Because like the professor of anti-corruption in Kenya says, if you keep goats with a hyena, you should not be surprised that you come back and your goat is dead. You shouldn't look too far because you are the one who kept the goat with the hyena. How has this administration made it impossible or near to impossible for people to access public funds? How does an aide to Madam, the wife of the president, is accused of stealing 2 billion naira from his boss? He didn't steal it from somewhere. He stole it. What it means is...
I'm glad you say it's an accusation.
Yeah, it's an accusation.
Yes,
and nobody has refuted it.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, the office of the First Lady did not refute the allegation in the air. The man is supposed to be facing trial. I expected that they would come and say, the guy didn't steal money from our person. No. The man is there, he's facing it, all right? So it's like the case of Alibaba, and the 40 Thieves. How does the office of the First Lady or the wife of the president be in possession of such an amount of money? And if the man stole 2 billion, it wasn't all the money that he stole. He stole part of the money. So the question you're asking yourself that what was in the coffers for him to be able to steal 2 billion naira cash? In this country, we have seen monkey and snake. It's like snake in the monkey shadow that we watched back in the day. Eat money and nothing has happened to it. The list is endless. The president, as a matter of fact, sometimes made a case for the chief of army staff to say that Buratai, the 2 houses that amounted to about 100 million naira in Dubai, the presidency made a case. But for the uproar that visited the former secretary to the government, Babachi Lawa, he probably would have remained there as the secretary to the government, of the federation. So preventive, the government hasn't done anything except for the single treasury, account. So if you come to the P&ID thing and that the government inherited it, the truth of the matter is that, do they also admit that there were certain things that the former administration put in place that they also inherited? For instance, the treasury single account. They lay claim as having implemented it without also emphasizing that they were not the one that put it in process. But when it comes to something that is negative, we are quick to say, like Shaggy said, it wasn't me. I don't think that's what leadership is. I think leadership is accepting responsibility for success and for failure. By the way, that matter now If you, as it, while dilly-dallying over it, do you know how much is lost, how much every day that we don't, pay that money or do something about it? Hundreds of millions of naira in its equivalent in every day for something that ab initio, was avoidable. Honestly speaking, when the way we run governance in this country, you don't tell yourself that Nigeria, are we serious as a nation at all? I was watching a video today, all right, because one of the things the president talked about is the issue of power. I was watching a video today where somebody posted prepaid meter in mud houses in Ghana. 5 years down the line, I can tell you that the power situation is worse for it. 5 years down the line, travel from here, don't go far, on your way to Ekpoma, and it is an appalling state. Don't go far. Try and go to Warri, around the Ologbo axis, it's an appalling state. Port Harcourt is an appalling state. So if 5 years down the line, the president is telling us what will be done to make life better for Nigerians after almost 5 years, then you are now asking yourself, it's either that you don't understand the ramifications of your mandate as president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, or that clearly there are some people who are doing the job for you. All you just come to do on every ceremony is to read the speech, to Nigerians, to assure them, which it does not. So it's a story state.
Okay, let's just quickly aggregate two other key points raised in Mr. President's speech. Of course, the issue of the economy and what is being done, and then, of course, the insecurity situation. And then he also expressed his concerns about the issue of cybercrime, and then the use of social media and stuff like that. I don't know what your thoughts are on those.
All right. Only very recently, the former president of the Republic of Benin, Soglo, I think Nisofera Soglo, has just indicted Saudi Arabia and Qatar as people who are sponsoring Boko Haram. I am hoping that, I just thought I should put that in the air. I'm hoping that the president has now got a cue, because he spoke about collaborations with, friends and allies. Remember not too long ago, he went to Saudi Arabia to sign the something anti-terrorism of Muslim countries. He went there to sign in Nigeria as a signatory. So it's a very interesting point for him now that Soglo said that on air in a conference in his country, that friends from Saudi Arabia and Qatar are the ones sponsoring Boko Haram. So I think the president should take that cue and then go back to that organization and present these facts before the president. Now, having said that, I tell you something, while he was giving his speech, they had hardly waited for him to finish before Boko Haram attacked, I think it's Mifa in Chibok. It's in Chibok local government area, as a way to register their presence and to belie the president's claim that Boko Haram has been decimated or had been. We read of military officers, I just read recently that they are looking for 20 soldiers who ran away from Boko Haram. But the president is talking about, enhancing the fight against corruption by purchasing arms and all that. What we have not seen here is leadership. What we have seen is that there are disparate efforts, all working in different directions, and then money being thrown at things. There's no strategic coordination, and that's what we mean by leadership. There is no vision and structures and purposes to set there in place through which we can work and have our feedback mechanism. I don't think the president has a good feedback mechanism about what's going on in the country. In every forest of this country, especially in the southern part of Nigeria, Fulani men are killing our women in the bush. They are not captured in public media. And the ones that are captured, there is no response from security agencies. And you want to go to the village and tell those people that you are fighting security? When somebody's wife has just been raped, and then the man himself has been killed, you want to go to his son in the village in Ovia Forest, you want to go to his village in Odigute and tell them that you are fighting, that there's security in the land, or you are fighting against security? He was citing the fact that he signed the police trust fund scheme, and that we are recruiting 10,000 constables as a commitment to show that he wants to fight what do you call it, armed robbery and kidnapping. Those are no proof. The fact that you are putting up effort on paper, effort following the regular lines. What you need now are proactive measures. Okay. What you need now are people thinking out of the box. Because what you have is an existential threat. You have a situation that is dire, that is absolutely overwhelming. So you are looking for thinkers who are going to come up with real-time solutions. It's not those civil service conventional ways. It's not an empire. This is a nation state. So you're going to be thinking strategically. So what the fight against what do you call it? Insecurity, as far as I'm concerned, is a total failure. People, the other day at Ramat Park, the CMD of Fidwa, broad daylight, people in police uniform. And he had already signed the so-called police trust fund as at that time. He had increased police salaries as at that time. But they were there in broad daylight, and they were wearing police uniform, police vests. Those black vests that they wear, you don't even have a coordinated police identity. So that when people saw them, they thought they were policemen. And in broad daylight, they came out, there's a military bag across the road, and there were a lot of shootings done. So what that tells you is that the president and his team are not aware of current realities. The crime rate in this country has gone high-tech. It has overwhelmed our security forces. Their thinking level is not able to cope with it. They now need experts. You find a lot of experts on television every day, private security practitioners with wonderful ideas. Nobody's employing them. They are brought to public space so that public office holders can identify them, team them together into a pool, and then let them give you structural thinking and creative thinking on how to come out of this insecurity problem. Who gives him feedback? You can travel on the roads. So the point is, as far as security is concerned, I don't care what he rates himself, that is a complete failure. As long as you have people afraid to go to their farms, as long as you have women being raped and nothing is being done, as long as you have kidnappers, in fact, policemen are even paying ransom. A police DPO was kidnapped the other day and he paid ransom. So if policemen are beginning to pay ransom, they advise you. Are you following me? So insecurity. How will you have security when in Edo State, now you read it in the papers, there's a great uproar of Edo citizens against the bail condition in Edo State. People are kept for all sorts of flimsy excuses in police stations, and they are charged huge amount of money. Is the police commissioner addressing that? Okay. Is the IG of police addressing that? So what do you mean when you say there's security? Everybody's afraid. There's threats in the land. There's no security anywhere.
All right. Let me pause you there, because obviously these are perspectives, personal perspectives that you've expressed, Chris.
In the public domain.
I don't think Reverend Lou Martin shares in these same views, particularly along the lines of the state of the economy. Some gains have been made, isn't it?
Yes, well, I agree with you. Some gains have been made. Bag of rice, 27,000 now. I don't know if that's a gain. Local rice is 19,000. I don't know if that is a gain. Our borders have been shut. There's been, on paper, there is economic growth on paper. We're growing at about 1.2, 1.5% GDP. That's on paper, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the lives of the average, Nigerian on the streets. But if you quickly allow me make a little contribution on security, I listened to a DPO who says that a police station is giving 66,000 naira per annum to run the police station, and you can find per annum that comes to about 5,500 naira per month. That comes to a little over maybe 300 naira. I mean, I don't know how that is on a daily basis. And the police station has cars, it has a lot of things. So if you go to a police station and they say you want to write a statement, they go and buy everything that you need to buy. In fact, the guy told us and said that if you see any vehicle on the road, it is by the mercy of the Nigerian populace, not by the mercy of government. How do you run a police station with about 20-something police officers, the smallest of it, with 66,000 naira a year? And then you give guns to those kind of individuals, all right? And so when they're on the street, I live on second number, there are guys who are always there. They're not doing anything about it. They're just there rogering. And do you blame them? The inconvenience of sport, do you blame them? So because when you give hungry people, quote and unquote, guns, they are a danger, not just to the force, but they're also a danger, to us. That's why you hear somebody is angry with the system. His clothes are tattered, and then he has a gun on him. And then so I don't argue with a police officer because I don't know the last time he ate, and he has a gun in his hand. So you can imagine that in itself is a state of insecurity. The fact that you don't fund security is a state in itself, of insecurity. So if somebody now comes and says, look, he wants to hire that gun, for instance, as 100,000 naira per night, the guy is going to be tempted, to so do it. I went to Lagos the other time. I just came back a few days ago, and by the time I came back, 2 of my generators were, I saw people over CCTV camera hauling 6.5 kg generator across the fence. I saw, it, all right? So they hauled it, and they hauled the big one, came back for the small one. The two at the same time hauled it, across. And I was looking at my own generators. I was not around. I was in Lagos, moved away. So if you now talk about security, when I am a victim of insecurity, they drove a vehicle, all right, into the street, drove out. They were not accosted by anybody between 3, and 4 a.m. in the morning. By 8 o'clock, my elder brother used to tell me, and I was on the traffic one day, and then I was waiting for traffic lights, and he looked at me. I was wondering why you were looking at me. He said, do you see any security person here? I said, no. He said, supposing somebody comes to your window and say, bong, bong, bong. It is only when you slow down they can do it, a gun. They'll take this your car away from you. So from that day onward, and I stand guilty, I don't obey traffic lights at night. Because by the time you look at the junction, there are no security officers there anymore. So anybody can have, a field day. That's how the, insecurity, are so high. And government has a way of lying to his own people. They call it official communication. 15 people die. Government will count 15, even count 16. That the 16 persons are about to. Government will communicate to us. Only 5 people, die. So government now lies to his own people and expect to connect, with the people. When you talk about, the economy, of Nigeria, how is Nigeria doing, in terms doing economically? And a litmus test of that is what we call FDI, foreign direct investment. It's not just to say it. There are spines of economy. One of it is basic infrastructure, the ease of doing business. I'm telling you that in Rwanda over there, you can register a company and start doing business in 3 hours in Rwanda. You will have your certificate of incorporation in Rwanda. That's why Rwanda today is the fastest growing economy by one individual, Paul Kagame. The things that he's doing in Rwanda, what Joyce Banda did in Malawi, what this guy Magufuli is doing in Tanzania, and what this man is doing in Ghana. Nobody is making reference to what is happening, in Nigeria. If at all anything, if we raise our VAT, I'll tell you what raising VAT will do. What raising VAT, what Ghana is doing? Ghana is eliminating tax, all right? We are introducing tax. And there's a free, there's the ease of doing business within the West African sub-region. So what will happen is that the organizations, just like what's happening in China, that's why there's a trade dispute between China and America. They are producing in America because, China, because it is easier to produce in China, and they're exporting to America. What will happen is that people are going to start producing in Ghana because consumption tax, government is trying to eliminate it to lure in people do business in Ghana. Right here, we are raising it. So they will produce in Ghana, and then will import it, Nigeria. To Nigeria and pay it to a low tax. When you raise consumption tax, you make your local product attractive because it now becomes easier for people to consume, foreign product. And when you close your borders, truth of the matter is that when you close borders, what you have done is that you have just gone to enrich certain, custom officers because, like I said, corruption is a culture, and culture is stronger than law. No matter what you do, about the law, culture, would always.
I just thought that maybe this would be relevant to our discussion, which is the seeming issues. The issues surrounding the vice president, allegations of corruption.
Yes.
And then people have also insinuated that there's a friction between Mr. President and his vice, even though the vice president has come out to debunk all of these allegations of a 90 billion naira less food and stuff like that. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, too.
Well, the vice president would be expected to say the things he has said. But what gladdens my heart is that the vice president has been bold enough to come out to exculpate himself from allegations of corruption. He has even gone as far as saying that he was ready to waive his immunity, to subject himself to any form of legal scrutiny.
Does the Constitution permit him to do that?
Well, legal opinions are divided, but majority of lawyers think that the Constitution does not permit him to do that. But it goes to show how much the man has trust in his integrity and the things that he has done. What is happening is clear to all. Some people somewhere think that the man has become too popular, has become too different, and therefore he must be rubbed in the mishmallow of the usual Nigerian corruption toga. But the man so far has survived it. He has come out more unblemished than they thought they were going to make him. So I think that the vice president needs to be more careful. It does show that there's some desperation somewhere, and as people have rightly speculated, it might have to do with 2023. Yeah. So I also agree.
Okay.
But that the presidency would deny that there is no rift. The presidency itself, when I say the president is now, the spokespersons of the president and the president himself, has not said there is no rift. It is the vice president in his loyal state, as usual, that have tried to convince Nigerians that there is no rift.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Martins, any line of thinking?
But just, you know, for me, I've concluded that there are no rumors in politics in this country anymore. There are no rumors. Once you hear, you just know that
this is the truth.
Yeah, something is. I think what may have happened was that I think that some resources was deployed to the office of the vice president, which was used for certain purposes, and people are trying to say those resources, have been deployed. But a few days later, I heard Garba Shehu saying that the president isn't going to, has no interest in the third term, and I said, okay. It didn't make sense to me. What brought about that kind of talk? And then just before that time, the vice president, who is the alter ego of the president, who, by the way, always has better acceptance. You will find out that all the times that the president has now traveled, he hasn't handed over power to the vice president anymore. So I think that there's probably a conspiracy theory to create an impression that this is not a viable alternative to the president, should the president decide for a third term, which I will not be surprised. Because by the time people start saying, the president is interested, that was how this began with, Obasanjo as well. And then we saw the,
all right, just a last point. On the World Teachers' Day, teachers in Edo State came together to mobilize massively a mega rally to show solidarity with Governor Godwin Obaseki of Edo State. And of course, it's attracted some reaction. But the teachers came out to say, well, they are doing it because this is the best governor to them, or this is the governor who has really listened to them, cared for them, and of course, met their yearnings and aspirations. Isn't this partisanship taking too far? Let me get your thoughts, Chris Ogeke. And by the way, our studio line is now open, 052-290-573. Dial it and let's get your take on all that we've talked about today on the program. 052-290-573. You find that number on the screen. Chris.
Well, I think every individual or group has a right to pick their heroes. I mean, we pick our heroes according to our own value system and according to our own value ratings. The teachers in Edo State have decided to pick the governor as their hero. They have said that he's been the best governor to them and the best governor to their profession. I happen to have spent 15 years of my life in the educational sector and in the best tradition of the classrooms. I do not see, personally, any significant change in our educational system in educational infrastructure, or in educational anything in Edo State. Apart from the fact that there was an PMB'S that was launched, tabs were given to teachers, many of which, by my own private investigation, have been found to be non-functional or dysfunctional in some, remote areas of the state.
Okay.
I think that if you want to address the educational system of a state or a country, you must be very holistic. Now, I wouldn't say that the governor has done nothing at all. One of the planks is to train the trainers, to train the teachers, to build their capacity. And I think that was what PMB'S, one of the things PMB'S concentrated on. But I'm also saying that I do not believe in fragmented policy implementations. Have a whole holistic plan for the sector, and let there be sustained training going on, sustained instructional materials. Work on the infrastructure. I happen to have visited some schools recently because I had a course to do that because of a program we had. You cannot drive into Itohan Grammar School when it is rainy season. The central feed is a river, and with many other schools like that. Now, pictures have been shown here about schools where we found cows in the classrooms. These infrastructural problems have to be addressed. I drove into Anglican Girls Grammar School. They live virtually inside the forest. If you go to New Era College, where you have the massive new building there, that's the only thing there. The place that is functional, where you have majority of the students, is nothing to write home about. Okay. So I think that if you want to address the educational sector, you address it holistically. And many of these teachers, when you engage them, their level and competencies have not reflected people who should be in the classroom. Okay, it's a very bold, what you call a sector. Yeah. And you have to be very bold and decisive in your decisions.
All right, Reverend Lomatis, yes. What are your thoughts on endorsement by teachers?
Well, that's a sector. And when you say, is that not partisan politics taking a bit too far? I remember when Mandela was accused of fraternizing with Fidel Castro of Cuba by the West. And then his response was, the problem the West have is to think that their enemies should be our enemies. And that our friends are those who showed commitment to the fight against apartheid and racial segregation. To that extent, Fidel Castro is my friend and the friend of South Africa. I said all of that to say the basis for which the NUT will do the endorsement for Mr. Governor is because they have looked at certain indices. A whole lot needs to be done, but they have looked at the governor that has best served their interest in the most recent times, in spite of all that still needs to be done, and they have concluded that, you know what?
Okay, let me get this call from Sonny Igadusa. Is calling us from Airport Road. Sonny, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, TV, and good morning to your guests this morning.
All right, please go ahead.
I want to thank them so far for their submission. I'm not going to repeat what they have said. Okay. And I agree with them. If there's anything more than 100%, I agree with their submission so far. Okay. First of all, my wife was transferred to the rural area about 3-4 years ago. And when she was transferred back about 2 years later, my son had to repeat school because when they tested him here, he couldn't match with his current class then. Just to talk about the education center, that I asked a question in another forum that we need to find out whether a man deserves an award before he's given. But the point that your guests that I have not talked about, I was hoping to get from, was the submission of Mr. President. Number one, there was no power when that issue was, when that broker was going on. I had to on generator to charge my Chinese radio. That's how I listened that day. And I was hoping that he would tell her that he was very sorry for the hardship that Nigeria was going through. The point that annoys me is where he said that Nigeria should think like him. I wanted to ask a question. Should I begin to think now to go for treatment in UK? Or what part of thinking? Is he asking me to think? Right. Because, hello?
Yes, we're listening to you.
So when he said we should think like him, I need to see the blueprint of his thinking because if I want to think like him, I have to go to abroad for treatment. If I want to think like me, I have to travel like 53 times. out of 52 months he has spent in the office. Good morning.
Okay, Sonny, thank you. Thank you for the views expressed. They're entirely yours. Hello, caller. Good morning.
Good morning. This is Bishop Victor from Sabugura.
Yes, Bishop, good morning.
Yeah, because of time factor, let me just concentrate on the issue of security.
Okay.
The truth about the matter is that Nigeria is not secure for now. People now find it very difficult to travel. Before they travel, you have to pray.
Bishop, you need to turn down the audio level on your radio to remove the echo.
Okay, is it okay now?
Yes, it's okay.
The fact that people now go into fasting and prayer before they talk of even fasting on any journey. Not quite long, 2 days ago, a lecturer at Polytechnic, along Okene Road, they shot at him, killed him, and then his younger brother, they kidnapped him. And they are now demanding for 10 million naira ransom. Most of our soldiers, most of our policemen, they now enter train when they want to travel because they are afraid of being kidnapped. If the policeman, if the soldier, who is supposed to guarantee our safety, if he's afraid, then what has become of the security situation in the country? In short, it is lamentable. And I think the federal government, the president, should really do the needful. Thank you. God bless all of you.
Thank you, Bishop from Sabungida Ora. 052-290-573. That's our studio number. Dial the number right now, and let's get your word on all our discussions today on Politics Today on independent television and radio. But interestingly, that's how much time will permit us on the program today. I want to say big thanks to everyone that contributed, and to our panelists in the studio, the erudite Reverend Olu Martins is the senior pastor here City Christian Center. He's also the executive director, Canvassers for Democracy and Rule of Law. Reverend Olu Martins, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We also want to thank Christopher Ojekere, is a program officer with Foundation for Good Governance and Social Change, and a civil rights activist. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Well, to all our callers, as I said before, we thank you for your contribution to the program. Remember, you can watch the full program again and again by visiting our YouTube platform, www.youtube.com/ITV-Radio-NG. Please always endeavor to leave a comment there. On behalf of all of us here, my name is Sonny Duke Okosun, thanking you for staying with us. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.